excuses to not be with you. 'Cause I wanna be sitting at your table. I wanna be ready and able to be all that you want me to be. Oh Master, I will keep my lamp burning, 'cause I wanna be sitting at your table. I don't wanna be found making excuses, just making excuses to not be with you. I don't wanna be found making excuses, just making excuses to not be with you. Oh, 'cause I wanna be sitting at your table. I wanna be ready and able to be all that you want me to be. Oh Master, I will keep my lamp burning, 'cause I wanna be sitting at your table. Whoa, whoa, sitting at your table. Whoa, whoa. Come all to me, come all the lowly, and come take a seat at the table of the King of Kings. Come all the poor, come all the hurting, and come take a seat at the table of the King of Kings. Come all to me, come all the lowly, and come take a seat at the table of the King of Kings. Come all the poor, come all the hurting, and come take a seat at the table of the King of Kings. 'Cause I wanna be sitting at your table. I wanna be ready and able to be all that you want me to be. Oh Master, I will keep my lamp burning, 'cause I wanna be sitting at your table. I wanna be ready and able to be all that you want me to be. Oh Master, I will keep my lamp burning, 'cause I wanna be sitting at your table. Whoa, whoa, 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 sitting at your table.
And Shabbat Shalom, everybody, and welcome to the Virtual House Church. I am your host, Rob Skiba, and I'm excited once again to be joined by John Hall of Now You See TV. Hey, John, how you doing, man?
Shakalaka moo moo and a Shabbat Shalom to you.
Shakalaka moo moo shalom, Shabbat Shalom.
Tongue twister. It's Friday, man. You just let it all hang out.
Man, I'll get my tang all tangled up on that one for sure.
Rubber baby buggy bumpers. Let's just keep going. Did you have a good week, brother?
You know, I did. It was fairly productive too. I was able to get a few videos done that I've been working on kind of off and on for a long time. So that's been a relief because it's been like, you know, I've got this huge to-do list of I got to get, you know, this done and that done, and so many projects in various stages of completion is driving me nuts. And just to be able to drop one or two off of that list is is a rewarding feeling.
The list is still like this, though. You drop one or two off, it stays right here.
Well, yeah, that's the problem. You know, the list is this big, and you drop one off, but then another one, it never seems to change. But I'm excited, man. We're trying to get ready, get all geared up for our trip to Amsterdam, which is, I believe, the second week of February, and been working with another guy, Luke Isaac, on Facebook to go to Australia. And that's shaping up for probably a little over a week-long trip, maybe even pushing close to 2 weeks. It's going to be a multi-city tour through Australia, and a slight possibility, nothing committed yet, but a very slight possibility of heading to New Zealand as part of that. Might as well, if we're going to be that far, might as well, take a little jump across the pond. So lots of stuff that we're trying to get done in preparation for those trips, but real excited. And we've got some other stuff going on with Now You See TV. You guys came here last week, and all kinds of fun and exciting things there. I don't know how much you're able to share, but why don't you share with the audience a little bit about, if you can, the plans that Now You See TV has for the near future.
In 2000, well, actually, it's 2017. In March, we're going to be launching the web-based subscription, web-based. John's been working feverishly on the website right now. I mean, it looks seriously dynamite. It's professional. He's done a fantastic job. He's brought people in to help him out with that. We've got Gary Albar working on the Roku right now, and it's almost completed. And we're hoping to launch this thing in March. Also, we're also working on a Flat Earth conference, virtual conference here on Now You See TV, and we're trying to set up a date to where we can line up all the speakers so they can come on for one whole weekend. And we haven't got everybody on board yet, but we're working feverishly behind the scenes to get that done. On top of it, Rob's going to be helping us out behind the scenes, giving us some directions. And like I said, we just added 2 more to his list, and we certainly appreciate it. You said we came down there last week to talk to you about it, to get some direction. And man, you guys are gracious. You and Miss Sheila were just so gracious to us while we were there, and we thank you for that.
Yeah, we had a blast. It was a good time. I wish you had a little bit more time to spend with us. There's a card game that I learned when I was at Sukkot called Nerds. It was actually Jacob Saremba and his wife introduced me to the game, and we played it like every day. And it's a lot of fun when you got like 4 or more people involved. Man, we could have had some fun if you guys could have stuck around a little bit longer, but there'll be more opportunities. So but it was just nice to be able to catch up and spend some time together with you guys again. And here we are again in the virtual world, and we're excited to have everybody else that's here with us this evening joining us. We are going through the Torah portions, and I'm going to do a screen share again here for the Virtual House Church.
I did post week 13 on the Virtual House Church Facebook page and on my page at Monday and today, and hopefully people got a chance to go through it when they come on tonight and have some really good questions for us. Yeah,
hopefully everybody did their homework. This year we're not going through line by line and the verses of the Torah portion of the prophets of the New Testament. We did that for 2 years in a row, and all of that's available here on the Virtual House Church. If you go to virtualhousechurch.com, scroll down in the left-hand menu. Well, first of all, if you're new here, if this is the first time for you, I would say start here. Start with the Coming Out of Babylon link. If you go to that page right there, it really gives you kind of a high-level overview about who we are, what we're doing, why we're doing it. Lots of videos to check out to kind of lay the foundation here for you. So check out the Coming Out of Babylon link. Lots of stuff there. This week, if you scroll down the left-hand menu, we're doing Exodus. We just finished Genesis last week, and this is week number 13, where we start the book of Exodus. And this is the King James version of the workbook. We've had that out for a while now, at least a year or two. And I just finished last week, actually, the Exodus workbook in the World English Bible Translation. That's available now on Amazon. If you just do Wisdom from the Torah Book 2, Exodus, and then in parentheses, type in WEB for World English Bible Edition, that'll take you to that one, and that's available for anybody that's interested. So we have it in King James as well as World English Bible. The broadcast for 2013 is right here. I need to rearrange this again. Let me see here. 2012, I think, is down here somewhere. I started it with Genesis. I didn't do it with Exodus yet. So what I'm going to do is move the Exodus player from 2012 up to the top of the page, and I'll do that throughout the website for all of them. I did it for Genesis. I just didn't do it for the other books yet. So you'll have 2012 in audio, then 2013, and then below that will be this show that we're doing right now in 2016. On some of these, I also have additional teaching from the Way Biblical Fellowship. You guys can check that out. I think those guys are in Australia, aren't they? Or are they Australia or New Zealand?
The Way Biblical Fellowship is over across the pond towards England.
It's in England.
Yeah, they're in Wales.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
And we're so dogging out Charlie to get him on Facebook, but he just won't do it. And we keep bugging JP to do it.
Yeah. Those guys are a lot of fun. I really enjoy those guys. And so they're also going through the Torah portion, which is right here. If you just want to click on that, that takes you to BibleGateway.com. King James Version, you can read those scriptures right there. The prophets do the same thing in New Testament. So those are the scriptures that everybody's been doing or will be doing this weekend for week 13. Again, we've got commentary for 2012, commentary for 2013, where we went through these line by line. It looks like I got this twice for some reason. This is a ministry called Parsha in 60 seconds. Parsha is a Hebrew word for study. So this is the study distilled down to a 60-second soundbite. I'll go ahead and play that so you guys know what this week's portion is about.
Shalom and welcome to Parsha in 60 seconds. Today's portion is from Exodus 1:1 through 6:1. It is called Shemot, which means names. Jacob's descendants filled the land of Egypt. Joseph and all of his generation died. A new Pharaoh arose, but did not know Joseph. He feared the amount of Israelites and enslaved them. He commanded the Hebrew midwives to kill all baby boys at birth, but they feared God and disobeyed. Pharaoh commanded that all newborn boys be cast into the river. A Levite couple hid their baby boy for 3 months. Finally, he was sent downriver in a basket, and Pharaoh's daughter found and adopted him and named him Moses, which means drawn out of the water. Moses grew up and he saw injustice on the Hebrews and killed an Egyptian. He ran away, met the Midians, and married into their family. God heard the cry of the Hebrews, and while Moses was watching sheep, God appeared to Moses as a burning bush. Moses was sent back to Egypt, and God would perform many wonders through Moses' staff. God hardened Pharaoh's heart. Moses and his bro Aaron confronted Pharaoh, and he was like, "Hey, let my people go." And Pharaoh was like, no. Pharaoh then made the Israelites work even harder and blamed Moses for it. Moses questioned God why things weren't working out, and God told Moses that the show was just beginning, and God would throw down on the Pharaoh. And that is Shemot in 60 seconds.
Oh, they're great. They're fantastic.
Yeah, those guys are a lot of fun. You got to throw down. Those guys are fun.
Moses' bro, Aaron.
Yeah, let us go. No.
It's joyful to read his word, and I'm glad those guys see it.
Yeah. They do. You can tell they enjoy what they're doing, and it's always, I find it a joy to watch their 60-second videos there. So that summarizes what this week's portion is about. Some in-depth commentary for those of you who really want to go deep. This is the link these two links right here you want to check out. It's by an individual named Ardell from yourlivingwaters.com. Always really cool, in-depth insight to check out there. And these are just some of the other notes and stuff from previous years going through this. This is one of the things that I brought out that I've been thinking about for quite some time now, probably going back to about 2007, I think, was when I first was looking into this, is, you always hear everybody preach that the Jews or the Israelites were slaves in Egypt for 400 years. Well, that's just simply not possible. And here's a chart that lays out the reason why I say that. Let me see if I can enlarge this. Okay, we see that were the children of Israel really slaves in Egypt for 400 years? Not any time from Abraham to Moses they weren't. God said in Genesis 15:13 that Abram's descendants would be oppressed as slaves for 400 years, and then he would deliver them. Nowhere in Genesis or in Exodus does this happen. So Exodus 12:40 makes no sense at all as it is presently translated. In Galatians 3:17, Paul states that there was 430 years between the covenant of Abraham and the law being given to Moses. Abraham was 75 when God made the covenant with him. Moses was 80 when he received the law. Here's the timeline. God gives a covenant to Abraham right here. No one's even in Egypt other than brief visits back and forth until 215 years after the covenant of Abraham, when Joseph is sold into slavery. So nobody's even in there. Nobody's even in Egypt until 215 years. Then we know the story. He's in prison and he gets out, and he's made second in charge of all of Egypt, and he rules in Egypt, and his family, the whole family of Jacob, we know the story. They come down there because of the famine and whatnot, and they're blessed for 70 years. They're living in the land of Goshen. Everything's great. Everything's wonderful. And then sometime, after Joseph dies, a Pharaoh shows up that didn't remember Joseph. And then the oppression starts. So at best, I can figure 100 years at the most where they were slaves. I tend to think that they were actually put into slavery just prior to Moses's birth. So on the low side, maybe about 80 years they're in slavery. On the high side, 100. But they certainly were not slaves in Egypt for 400 years. The math just doesn't work out. So that's one of the things I point out. And then the other thing, I don't know if I covered this here. Actually, I think I may have put it in the 2013 broadcast, the video edit of it. Chuck Missler points out that the Pharaoh that showed up was likely an Assyrian, and he gives his biblical reasons for that, which would make sense. If the Pharaoh at the time of Moses was, or the time the Israelites were enslaved, was an Egyptian, it doesn't make sense that he wouldn't remember Joseph, when just about 80 years or so prior, that whole family was very well known, and Joseph was responsible for saving all of Egypt. So that'd be like, Donald Trump not remembering Abraham Lincoln, or George Washington. Let's go back a little further, all right? What kind of U.S. president would we have if he didn't know the history of our country? So it doesn't make sense that something that monumental, this was huge. What Joseph did for the land of Egypt and the surrounding areas was huge. So for a Pharaoh to show up that didn't know that fairly recent Egyptian history would be patently absurd. And again, like I said, Chuck Missler, I think, makes an excellent case for the fact that that particular Pharaoh was a conquering Assyrian who came into the land. And of course, being from Assyria, coming into the land of Egypt and conquering and usurping and becoming Pharaoh, he would not have known the history of Egypt, wouldn't have any need to. So that makes a lot more sense to me. So those are just some of my commentaries on this. Also, this guy right here, Stephen M. Collins, he's pretty interesting. He's got a lot of really good stuff. You could go through his website and listen to audio and different things regarding the so-called lost 10 tribes. Really interesting stuff there. So you can check on that link right there. Let's see. There's the Joshua account also, apparently I got in here. So hopefully you guys did your homework. If you haven't done your homework, there's some homework for you to do after this broadcast. So that's pretty much all I've got to say on it, and we'll turn it back over to you.
All right, guys. So if you want a link to get into the show to ask Rob or myself any questions about the Torah portions tonight, please send me a private message. There is a question that just popped up from Sam. Shabbat Shalom. Question: I have an atheist who asked me why Yah would harden Pharaoh's heart. He said it was interfering with free will. What is your thought on that, Rob?
Yeah, that's a common one atheists like to use, especially. My understanding of that, however, is that this guy wants to go up against God. He is obviously rebellious. He believes in his gods, and he thinks he's going to make war with the God of the Israelites. And if you think you're going to make war with God, good luck. That's a losing battle just from the very premise of it. You are going to get tired out really quickly. And basically the understanding that I now have of this, and it goes to the Hebrew words used and just the concept of how they understood it, is God's like going, oh, no. You want to oppose me? no, I'm not going to let you get tired. Okay. You've set your heart against me. You have set your will against me. You want to fight against me? Okay, here's a few poundings on you. Boom, boom, boom. Now, most people would faint from exhaustion, game over, but still have a bad attitude, right? And God's like, okay, you still want to oppose me? Get back up again. I'm going to strengthen you. I'm going to allow you to continue to oppose me. So it's not an issue of coming against free will. It's God actually encouraging this individual's free will. He's saying, you want it? You want it? Come on. It's like in Rocky 3, right? Rocky's taunting Clubber Lang, Mr. T, is that the best you got? Come on. He's rubbing his head, come on, is that the best you got? And Mr. T's trying to, pound the snot out of him, but Rocky's just getting madder and madder, right? And Paulie's and Apollo's in the corner there, and they're like, man, he's getting killed. He's like, no, he's not. He's getting mad. He's basically just saying, hey, go ahead, man, give it your best shot. I'm not going to let you get tired. I'm going to strengthen you in your weakness. I'm going to allow you to continue to oppose me.
It's almost a type of shadow of how the high priest in Yeshua's day sent out spies to spy on Yeshua. Though we see with those guys, Yahweh almost hardened their hearts to his teaching, to his disciples, and the way he was reaching people, because it scared them. And here's Pharaoh looking at Moses going, oh my gosh, he's taken all of Israel, he's taken our slaves, 100 years or 80 years, he's taking our workforce and leaving. Yeshua is doing the same thing with the 10 lost tribes of Israel in diaspora. He's reaching them almost. Wouldn't you say it's almost another type in shadow?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I totally followed exactly what you just said, but
he partnered their hearts, the leaders of that day. It's almost
I think we get messed up on the terminology, because when we hear that, it's just like the atheist accusation. It's like, well, poor Pharaoh, he didn't have a choice. God, made him come against him. That's not the case at all. As we actually see, God many times will turn people over to a reprobate mind. He will give us warning after warning and say, hey, you better not do that. That's not the right way to go. He maybe chastise you a little bit, try to get you to turn back, to repent. And finally, if you don't, he says, okay, if that's what you want, here you go. You don't like the manna I've got. You want quail? Okay. Are you going to complain? Okay, fine. Here's all the quail you can possibly handle, and they're puking on it, shortly afterwards. So, God gives us what we want, for better or worse. It says whenever two pray in agreement, right, and in accordance with God's will, he will do it. Well, I think the reverse is also true. It's like, if you're going to set your heart against me and you're going to persist in being against who I am and what I'm about, then fine. I'm not going to let you get tired. I'm going to strengthen you in that.
I like that. I like that perspective you have. I was looking Isaiah 52:4. In that verse, it talks about Pharaoh being an Assyrian. Yeah. I think that's where Chuck got it.
I believe that's I think that's where he kind of launches his thesis from.
I thought that was Exodus 2:18 and 3:1. And I'm sitting there looking at him. It talks about Moses, his father-in-law. In the Blue Letter Bible, it defines him as Esau's son-in-law. That's. I was like, what? I didn't know if you ever heard that.
No, I don't think I've ever heard that or looked into that.
Let's see. And I know, and pulling this out of the virtual house church, and guys, there's so much information there from the Torah Portions, from 2 years straight. Jasher chapter 68, it goes into great detail about the Egyptians were attempting to kill the infant boys, and the Father's divine intervention to protect some. He sent an attending angel to protect and feed them, in the earth actually protecting them. Jasher also defines how Moses was a fine child when he was born. A light like sun and moon combined with filled the room. And then Jasher expounds on the stories in amazing detail. And you can find this information on the Virtual House Church webpage. And I'm like, this is crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Let's see. We've got a question. Tiffany asked, let me go in order here. Paul says, anyone sees do you see a parallel between Joseph's coat being dipped in blood to cover the sins of his brothers and the blood Yeshua shed to cover all of our sins? Pose that as a question to Rob. You see that as a parallel?
Yeah, I do see a parallel there. And also something else that I noticed from previous study where we drew the line down the middle of the page and we had Joseph on the left and Yeshua on the right and how many parallels and stuff, I was thinking Joseph produced Ephraim, right? And Jacob's blessing over Ephraim was that he would become the multitude of nations. Red and yellow, black and white, they are precious in his sight. The coat of many colors represents, this is why I've had it up to here with the, Black Hebrew Roots movement that, the only black people are this, that, and I'm like, look, all of us, all colors, all races. I actually believe there's only one race. I believe there's the human race. I think the whole idea of racism is annoying and absurd and just unbiblical. Because God's heart's for everybody, regardless of color, but it's because of Joseph's son Ephraim that all the nations end up essentially being, in the long run, being blessed. So, and this is why part of the reason why I call it the Ephraim Awakening, and we've shown the chart on the front page of Virtual House Church. In fact, I'll go ahead and pull that up again. You go to virtualhousechurch.com, and right there on the front page, scroll down, and you have the restoration of Israel right here. All the colors right here, the coat of many colors. And, Joseph being a type and shadow of Yeshua, he's all about he's not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. So, yeah, long answer, but the short answer would be, yeah, I do certainly see the parallels.
Well, I know you got the question last week. Why do you think there's no blue dots in Russia? And that was an interesting question.
Well, there's restricted access countries, all that kind of stuff. That doesn't mean that there aren't people there. There more than likely are lots of them there. They just don't have the freedom to post it up on social media.
Wow. Okay. Let's see here. There was a comment, and it was private message. And they said, couldn't one say that Pharaoh's heart was hardened due to the fact that the ordered the firstborn of the Hebrews killed? Just because he did that, that's why he just ordered it. Seems like he may have been judging Pharaoh for what he just did.
Well, I could see that, but I think also there's a larger case that could be made for, God just strengthening him in his rebellion. Say, hey, that's what you want to do? There you go. What I'm doing here is I'm modifying this so that the everything's in the right order here. So there we go. So the page has been updated. So you have 2012, 2013, and then this broadcast that we're doing right now is right here in place. So all that will be there for anybody who wants to check it out.
I mean, there's so much information there. So much. And you go into a little bit of Jasher. I believe Esau was married to Ishmael's sister from Jasher. Yeah, it was sister or daughter. He was married to his daughter. And Jethro is the son of Esau and Ishmael's daughter. I find that fascinating.
Yeah, I haven't actually looked into it, so I really don't have much of a comment on it. If that's true, that's, yeah, that is true. And he also married into a Midianite.
Mm-hmm.
The Midianites gave him a lot of problems, later on. But
it's all about grafting in.
Well, Abraham's descendants are blessed, period. The seed of Abraham is blessed, period. Now, there is the chosen seed that is blessed all the more, I guess you could say, and that would be, of course, Isaac. But, I mean, even Ishmael, is blessed. And what is odd to me, and I don't quite know what to do with it, is when in the later years, Abraham, after Sarah's death, marries Keturah, who's a Canaanite of all things, which just blows my mind, based on the other research that I've done. And it's through her that the Midianites show up. So, and then we got Moses marrying into that line. So, yeah, it's pretty wild.
Here's an interesting question from Rhonda. She says, "How long was it from the first time Moses went to Pharaoh and asked to let the people go, and that they actually left Exodus?"
Yeah.
She's heard different times. Have you got a take on that?
Yeah, I don't have a firm time on it, but it is clearly an extended period of time. Because you've got, I mean, if you actually analyze each of the plagues and how they happen, and everything like that, it took place over a span of time. How long? I know there's people out there who probably had already done it. In fact, Ardell may even have something in the commentary that was written on this portion. I don't know off the top of my head. I don't remember, but everything is definitely stretched out beyond what we typically imagine. And most of us are what we imagine about the Exodus, unfortunately, is in our mind because of Cecil B. DeMille, and other people, movies like the Ten Commandments. When we see impressive special effects and stuff like that, I mean, they're really truncating the story to fit within 90 to 120 minute movie. So everything's compressed when we watch the movies. And one of the things that impressed me the most when I was thinking about timelines and stuff is if the Red Sea crossing is where people believe that it took place. And I, say what you will about Ron Wyatt. I think some of his stuff is right on target. Some of his stuff I don't. I don't believe that he's right about the Ark of the Covenant, nor do I believe he's right about the Ark of Noah. However, the chariot wheels and the crossing of the Red Sea and several other things that he's done, Sodom and Gomorrah and stuff like that, I think he's right on target. I think he's, dead on. And if the Red Sea crossing is where he and others have said that it is, that's a really long journey that the Israelites, if you imagine 2 million people, some say thereabouts 2 million people, right? I mean, we're talking men, women, children, old people, animals. A young person can sprint, pretty fast. But when you're dealing with that kind of a group of people with, men, women, children, old people, animals, it wasn't a fast journey. And when you look at the distance they had to cross, I mean, they were going all night long. I mean, it would have been literally an all night long affair, probably well into the morning. So, this is an impressive miracle when you consider the wall of water on both sides, for like 12 hours, let's say, I don't know if that was that long, but however long it was a lot faster than the 20 minutes we see in the movies. I mean, they're walking this long distance looking at the, whales and stuff looking at you through the, wall of water on either side of you. So, I think everything from each of the individual plagues to the time it took to cross the Red Sea is a lot longer than what most of us imagine it to have been, primarily due to the movies that we've watched.
I don't know who I was listening to. While you read these stories, you can put yourself in those places, and you're walking along the wall of water. And I've heard people make mention it's a type and shadow of being baptized and stuff. But as they're walking, you got to go through ruts that have dried. Of course, the wind dried the ground, the rocks, the terrain, the bumps, and they're carrying carts, babies, like you said. It had to have been a massive, high anxiety trek all the way through there.
Oh yeah, I mean the average. Just think, okay, Moses and maybe his brother and a few other people probably had the faith. Moses raises his staff and the sea splits. Okay, that's a pretty good indication. All right, guys, God's got our back here. So the primary dudes involved probably had all the faith they needed to go across without any anxiety. But you're dealing with, if we're dealing with 2 million people. The people in the back of the line, they're just following the people in front of them. They don't know what's going on. They're just kind of following the crowd and hoping they make it through it. So yeah, they had to have been freaking out, going, I don't know how this is happening, but and like you said, the terrain would have been uneven, and I mean, it was a massive miracle. I mean, a huge, and just logistically, when you think about it, the more you start to think through how things happen, and how like a convoy of people works like an accordion. When I was in the Army and we would do road marches, a lot of times we'd end up in alphabetical order, and because your name is on your name tag is your last name, so I'm Skiba, I'm way in the back, and what we go on these long road marches, I would end up running the entire road march. And the reason for that is because some knucklehead, somewhere between the B's and the G's probably, or the M's, is not keeping pace with the guy in front of him. So what happens is, he lags a little bit behind, and then he has to, step faster to get caught up. And then, but this accordion effect gets worse and worse and worse the further back you get. So, when you get to the S's through the Z's, we are sprinting the entire 4 or 5 mile road march, and I used to get so mad because I'm like, I'm gonna kill the whoever the schmuck is that's over here in the M's is causing this, because man, I mean, you got 50 pounds on your back and you got combat boots on, and you're carrying an M60 or an M16, and man, I mean, and you're in Alabama in August. Oh man. So, this is a memory that I have of how logistics work in a convoy of people, marching, and how this accordion effect takes place. Now, just imagine 2 million people with old people and children and animals trying to run every which way. Wow. I mean, there were probably huge gaps between, okay, you got, whoever the forerunners are, they're going, maybe they're just walking at a swift pace and a few people behind them, but not far behind those lead people, you're going to get this massive accordion effect taking place. And by the time you get to the back end of the 2 million, I mean, there were huge gaps taking place. And I mean, this is a massive miracle. And what gets me really excited is there's a greater exodus coming. And when you read about that in Jeremiah, it's written in such a way that this greater exodus that's coming is going to be so great that, as amazing as the exodus was that we're reading about here, the time of Moses, that exodus is going to pale in comparison to what's coming. So, and the more I think about what happened, and the pillar of fire showing up, and the plagues, and the Israelites had to experience 3 of the plagues, right? 3 of the 10 plagues. They had to go through it. So we're going to have some rough times. But the other 7, they were preserved in Goshen, and we've talked about it before that. Norm Franz said that your Goshen is wherever God has you, and that's something that I've taken great comfort in. Is just like, okay, I'm in my Goshen. This is where God has me. If my Goshen is somewhere else, He'll move me there, just like He moved Jacob, and his family from Canaan to Goshen. But in the beginning of the Exodus workbook, I have the chart that explains what I'm just talking about here. That the plagues of Revelation, they're just an amped up repeat of the plagues of Exodus. There's like a perfect correlation between them. And so I talk about that some more in the workbook and stuff too. So yeah, we are in for some, in some ways scary, but in some ways extremely exciting. I mean, we forget Industrial Light and Magic. We haven't seen special effects like what really happened in the time of Exodus and what is to happen in the future.
That was one of the questions from the chat room, the correlations between the plagues and what we see in Revelations. And I'm glad you put that up there. And I want to get everybody on board. Where can they go find the Exodus workbook that just came out? Are you working on others at the moment?
Yeah, well, like I mentioned earlier, I'll put a link here eventually for the World English Bible version, but if you just want the King James, which is one I just showed you, you can click there. That takes you to Amazon. And if you want the other one, you could just go on Amazon and search for Wisdom from the Torah, Book 2, Exodus WEB edition, and that'll show you that one. So both of them are available through Amazon. And yes, I will be definitely continuing the process of translating the other ones, or not. I'm not doing the translation. I'm just cutting and pasting basically and reformatting, but publishing the remaining Torah books as WEB. I'll try to get Leviticus done, obviously, before what is Leviticus week number 24. So I've got a few weeks to get that done, which is good because I've got a bunch of traveling going on in between there. So sometime between my travels, I will try to get the Leviticus workbook done before we hit it in week number 24.
Excellent. Okay, guys, this is the Virtual House Church. One of the reasons why Rob has started this on Now UC TV, so he can interact with you. I have got the link hot and ready. I'm about ready to just throw it into the chat room and welcome you guys in. You okay with that, Rob?
Yeah, man. Let's go.
Mark asked a question, and I'm going to throw it in there. Does it seem like Moses at first was not much of a good speaker, but as Exodus continues, there does not seem to be any issues with his speech? This would be a good question for Patricia. She's a speech path. I can't speak well, Yahweh.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was in Joshua or where it was, but I seem to remember reading a story that he did have some sort of physical problem. If it was caused during birth or something. I don't remember what the case was. That he did. He apparently had a problem. I had surgery on my jaw and to have a wisdom tooth removed, but I had a big gap and everything, and they had to basically rebuild all that, and somewhere along the line a nerve got damaged, and so half my tongue is numb. And in the beginning I was biting it all the time because unfortunately I couldn't feel it like when I was chewing, but I could feel it when I bit it. It's like, oh man, I bit my tongue again. So I ended up biting my tongue all the time. And in some ways, I had to relearn how to talk to compensate. It feels, this was back in 2013. It feels like it is improved. It has gotten better since then, but it's still numb. So maybe I've just adapted. So was that the situation with Moses? Did he just adapt, or I tend to think if he did have a physical problem of some sort, that the Holy Spirit just gave him everything he needed, because he starts off saying, I can't really talk, and he's like, okay, fine. God says, bring your brother along. He could, and then from that point on, Moses is doing all the talking. So the speech problem apparently didn't last very long. And when you get to Deuteronomy, I mean, that's like one big long speech that he gives there. So yeah.
I could hear you. You didn't talk like that, did you?
Well, not quite that bad, but
that was great.
Yes, I did have a little bit of problems I had to kind of work through, but
we used to do that the whole show.
Yes.
There's a good question, and I know you really like this documentary. This comes from Cynthia. I have a question. My husband and I have watched the Patterns of Evidence Exodus documentary, and they waged the possibility that Joseph and later the Exodus happened much earlier than what other historians and theologians have stated. Have you watched the documentary as well, and do you think we have it wrong, the timing of the events of Exodus?
Oh, I think we have so much wrong about so many things, and definitely about the timing of different things like that. I did watch the documentary. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was extremely well done. I loved the visual graphics that they did to show the timeline, the way they did that, like on that wall. That I think that movie helps to make a lot of sense, not only of the biblical narrative, but of history in general. And it seems to sync up a lot of things in some pretty amazing ways. So, yeah, great film.
Agreed. And we had him, the producer director of that, on Now UC TV not too long ago. He was very gracious. We got Melon Seed that just joined us. Are you there?
Yes.
Oh, hey, welcome to the Virtual House Church.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. God bless.
You too.
Have you got a question or comment?
Nope, just chasing links. Sorry.
Well, welcome to the show.
Appreciate it, brother.
All right. Hi, bye.
Oops.
No worries. Hey, Chad.
Welcome to the show, Chad.
Got your book, buddy. Came in earlier this week. So yeah, I'm excited to have the hard copy. Hopefully, you guys are watching this and listening. Had a chance to catch the Revolutionary Radio Project interviews that I did with Chad. We did parts 1 and 2. We have to do a part 3. I was gonna ask you if you could do it this past Wednesday, but I got tied up and couldn't do a show, so I just did a rerun. But I'd love to get you back on again and talk some more. But now I have the book, so
That's
thank
good.
you.
Well, you can go through that, and we can get those questions lined up, and you can put me on the hot seat, as it were, I guess, a little better. That you were mentioning that, that we talked about that a little bit out of the book with the amped up repeat of Revelation and the plagues there. I think now we can see literally why there's legal parameters and justifications for that. It's just not accidental linkage of those plagues showing up. It's the same God. So I think that's exciting. It's very interesting. We're in the book of Exodus, and at the end of or at the beginning of Revelation, I had noticed how, like you did and many others did, it seemed like we just saw that repeat of the book of Revelation that was in Daniel. But it's interesting that at the end of Daniel leaves off with them two others on the opposite side of a river. So it leaves off with an Exodus type situation where Revelation then picks up. So I thought that was always interesting too, that you have that correlation going on there.
Now, I'm not sure if I'm going to get this right or not. I think it's called Gen 4 or something like that. Sheila's been watching some documentaries or YouTube videos and interviews, people talking about strange things that are happening with memes and lyrics and songs and stuff like that, and that it's basically a part of a ritual or some sort of thing dealing with one of the Egyptian gods. And they were saying how there's been this sort of return to various aspects of Egyptian god worship. And of course, we understand that when we talk about things like my book Babylon Rising and what our own currency has on it, and what a lot of the rituals in Freemasonry and things of that nature are always going back to things dealing with Egyptian gods. And so it was just kind of interesting as sort of I guess I could say an added confirmation to your thesis on a totally unrelated subject. Sheila let me listen to some stuff. I'm like, wow, this is just like Chad was saying, is, God is basically turning the whole world into Egypt, and I don't know if it's something that he's actively doing himself. I don't think that's probably the right way of saying it. It's probably more like he's allowing, people to do what they want to do, to, in their free will, to return to those things. But yeah, man, I mean, the more my eyes are opening to your thesis, the more I'm actually seeing it playing out.
Well, it's those same spiritual influences and how they're purveyed and conveyed. And there's a certain amount of people who are really into that, who make sure that they push it out. And, I can only expect that we're going to see more and more of that type worship of the Egyptian gods and modes of worship and rituals coming to light more and more. If anybody is coming out of that world, out of that world, I'd be interested to hear, from some of those who have converted within the last year, what they could tell us about, those kind of things. I wouldn't go actively looking for them, but it's interesting to know.
Yeah, right.
So anyway, yeah, I love this portion of the scripture. It's you talked about time moving too. I think it was interesting. I was pointing out, and back at the beginning of this portion, if you go up, and it says that Moses came up, when he escaped from the land after the showdown with the two taskmasters. He runs out and escapes, and then he says he dwells in the land. He fetches water for the gentleman's daughter, who we later find out had Ebenezer, I think. But and he says, "Oh, hi, how are you? Want my daughter?" It's like 2 verses.
What's up, yo? Here.
Oh, nice to meet you. Here, take my girl.
Well,
You know,
yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
you got
Everything's
that
always
2 verses.
Yes. I mean, again, it's all truncated.
It's like, man, she must have been a real bear in the tent. You know, hi, how you doing? I've been looking for someone to just take her. First guy that shows up, chucks her out the tent.
There you go.
Here, I don't like this one very much. But anyway, that's all I was pointing out. I'll mute now.
All right, cool.
So
Thanks, Chad.
it's good to have you on, Chad. We had Ike show up.
Ike,
Welcome to the show.
awesome, man. Nice to finally meet you. We interact sometimes on Facebook, but wow,
Right.
welcome, man.
Shalom, brother. Shalom. Thank you for having me. Oh, you guys can hear me, right?
Yeah.
My first time doing this.
Yeah, I can hear you.
First off, before I just go just quickly, I just want to tell you guys that I do appreciate what you do. And Rob, I don't know if you got any of my messages in the past, but I know you were going through a hard time with some of these people coming on your page and all that foolishness. But, I just want to remind you, hey, I'm an example of what can happen when you're faithful to what the Most High has for you. So thank you. Thank you. I appreciate
Wow,
your obedience.
thank you.
Thank you. I think sometime earlier last week I had a question, but it escapes my mind right now. But what I do want to get your take on, I know you were earlier speaking about the Black Hebrew Israelites. Now I have a close, well, at a point, I had a close relationship with some of my friends who were Christians together in an old church, but they found their way into that belief. And one of them, I really respected him a lot, and he was actually like a teacher in the Christian church. So I felt that the Most High was leading me just to keep my eye on him, watch, and also I would pray. Like, Father, as you show me the truth about your Torah, if this is true, let me see if there's any truth to this, And they were coming at me with one of the beliefs is that the slaves were taken out of a certain part of Africa. I'm actually from Nigeria, and I'm from the Igbo tribe. So they would come at me a lot once they knew that. And I'm like, hey, what would it hurt? Either way, I'm good. So I wanted to know the truth. And they would always, when I hear all the reasonings and I'll pray about it, it just never sat right in my spirit. But I'll be amazed on how many people are just leaving the churches, especially young Black men, and would go towards that thinking. I speak to my wife, who's an African American, and the only thing that makes sense to me is like this need for identity. This is something I guess Blacks, especially out here in America, deal with a lot. Is that need to identify, with something needed so bad that you find them trying to cling on to. I mean, some of them, not all of them. Sorry, trying to cling on to certain other cultures, Egypt, Pan-Africanism. Now, this whole Torah thing, they're clinging on to that. And you find people that, first of all, they got to be angry at the white man.
They are almost always very hostile. It's not like, hey, let's have a conversation about an interesting idea. It's like very hostile. I mean, I don't publish what people say to me and do to me, but wow, I mean, they are an extremely hostile group, at least in my experience.
Yeah, you have your different branches, they're different camps, but actually the camp that my friends are in, well, it's not a camp actually. They're just separated from that. They're more about, Yeshua, and they try to separate from the costumes and all that stuff, but that disdain for whites, who they'll call Edomites, is really heavy, to the point where they would take scripture and say that, what the Most High wanted Israelites to separate from the rest of them because of a race. They made it a racial issue.
Right, exactly.
And for me, it was like, if you read the verses, every single verse they picked up, if you read it, he wasn't concerned about the outward. It's about what they would do, how they would, pull them away from worshiping him so they can serve other gods. And that's what the Most High was trying to avoid. And but anyways, it was just crazy with that. And I know I just wanted to, just touch on that a little bit with you. And if there's something extra behind that, because I do have friends, like I said, that get into this. I want to see what I can do to encourage them not to, just to stick with Torah rather than go into the whole genealogy part of it. But is there anything you've heard regarding like that history going way back that maybe they might have some kind of a make sense of it?
What you're saying makes sense to me, this need for identity and things like that. So I understand that part of it. But like I've been saying all along, it's like, okay, whatever color Noah and his wife were, they had 3 children of the same color. It's just right. So, and then shortly after that, even if we went with the idea that for some reason he had, Asian child and a black child and a white child, let's say that bizarre theory is true. Well, the next chapter, Genesis chapter 11, they are all together intermingling in the plains of Shinar.
Right.
They're thoroughly mingled together doing their thing, and they create this tower together, and then God separates the language into 70. So there's further dispersion. Then over time they start to mix together again, and then you have what we're reading about here in the Exodus, stuff like that. And you have the mixed rabble coming out. It wasn't just the Israelites, but it was the Egyptians coming out. And if you go the route that the only black people are slaves, which is not true. Almost every race has at some point been enslaved. I mean, people talk about slavery of black people in America. Well, why are they ignoring the Irish slave trade, which was in some ways even worse? Pink, pale skinned white guys with red hair, and there was all that going on here. So all of that aside, you have the mixed rabble coming out, and if you go the route of believing that the Israelites were black and that everybody in Africa is black, well, then you have black people enslaving black people because you have the Egyptians enslaving the Israelites. So if you want to get angry at anybody, black people need to get angry at black people for enslaving black people. But instead they're coming after white people. So, and that's all based on recent U.S., United States of America history for the most part, is where that hostility is largely coming from. So, I mean, none of that makes any sense if you think it through. And then when you get to 720 BC, you have the diaspora of the 10 northern tribes being dispersed into all the world,
right?
Where for 2,700 years they've been thoroughly intermingling with people. And Romans 11 for me is the trump card that just annihilates the whole theory. Because Paul says, if you believe in Yeshua, then you are grafted in, and it doesn't matter your color, it doesn't matter your whatever nationality, you are grafted into the cultivated olive tree that is Israel. So that one chapter alone obliterates all of this, and this I'm just call it what it is: prejudice.
Right.
It's just outright prejudice. So I'm against the whole thing. I think the whole thing is just totally ridiculous. It defies all logic, when you actually break it down and look at what was going on, just like I just did. So,
a quick question about the tribes, the 10 tribes scattered. Now we know, like you were speaking earlier about Ephraim, and most Gentiles will be, it makes sense that they get into being part of the 12 the tribes of Israel through Ephraim, But what about? Is there a chance that those are originally scattered somehow, some way, their descendants would, realize that they're blood descendants of Abraham, or is it just all just through Yeshua?
I believe the actual Ephraim awakening, as I refer to it, is the literal blood-born people that genetically can trace their ancestry back to the 10 tribes. However, in the middle of all of those bloodlines, legitimate bloodlines, there are the wild olive branch people that are all around them that are waking up. Myself, I don't know that I have any blood that goes back to Jacob. I don't know. I do have AB positive blood, which is a relatively rare blood type that's found predominantly in the Middle East. So maybe it could be that I do have blood that goes back there. I don't think it's an issue of blood, though. I think it's an issue of the heart, because it doesn't matter if we're dealing with bloodlines or not. It's a heart issue in the sense that spiritually, if you accept Yeshua as your savior, then you're grafted into this bloodline, if you will. So, but I believe the actual Ephraim awakening is the blood descendants who, it's the story of the prodigal son. Because you have the two brothers, and one goes off and sows his wild oats and goes crazy, and the other stays home and does what he's supposed to do, and stays relatively faithful to the father. And then the prodigal wakes up in the pig pen one day and realizes how far astray he's gone, and thinks, man, I got to make my way back to the father. I believe, based on the prodigal son story, that the Ephraim awakening is the literal awakening of the prodigal son, the blood and descendant of the 10 tribes. But again, they were dispersed into all the world. And so wherever they're popping up, and whatever influence they have had on their surrounding, neighbors and whatnot, we're being brought in with them. So, I like to think that, if I don't have blood relations, and frankly, it doesn't matter to me either way. If I do, great. If I don't, great. I'm going in with them, because I'm waking up right alongside of Ephraim, if that makes sense.
Oh, interesting. All right. Well, that's all I got for now. I'll probably start racking them up for you next week. But again, appreciate what you do. Thank you. Appreciate your family and the guys of UCTV. I just thank you. Without you guys, especially where I'm at, I don't have too much fellowship. That's an issue when you leave the church, you leave that whole fellowship, and it's hard to get but I do have a lot of say Black Hebrew Israelites. It's not a problem to find them around here in California, but that's not what I'm looking for, and it's kind of hard. So what I have is you guys. What I have is what you guys do. So even if it's just for one person, and I know we're probably thousands, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Hey, what part of California are you?
I am in the Inland Empire, about 50 miles east of Los Angeles.
Oh, 50 miles east.
Yeah, close to Big Bear.
Okay. All right.
Not too far.
Yeah, cool. Well, I get out that way every now and then, so we'll have to hook up next time.
Oh, for sure. It'll be a pleasure.
What's that? Is that highway? Is it 91?
Oh yeah. I'm pretty close to 91 and the 15, like in the city of Corona, around that area. Yeah.
Whenever I go out there, there's a hotel that I always stay at. It's off of 91. It's probably about 40 minutes or so east of downtown. I don't like going into downtown, so I'll get and I almost always get the same hotel. So I'm probably fairly close to where you are. So I'll definitely have to hook up on Facebook and let you know next time I'm out in that area.
Awesome, brother. Awesome. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, guys. And I'll let you go. I'm done. I'll catch you guys next time. Okay.
You're always welcome to show
Thanks,
up.
Ike.
Bye.
Thank you, ma'am. Next up, we've got Mr. Rob Baxter is on with a little one.
Hey guys.
Hey, Rob.
Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom is my homies. I was watching that. I kind of get it what's going on here now, and so I'm not gonna bring up any cannibalistic reptoids or anything, but I noticed some verses in the Virtual House There Needs a Video, and I found some corresponding verses. I kind of don't got a lot of time, as you can see, but I found some correlation verses with Jeremiah 1 through 2 and 3, and then Psalm 13, and then Matthew 1, and also Mark 12, verse 18 to 27, and 1 Corinthians 14, 18 to 25.
So you're saying these are correlation verses that go along with Exodus 1 through 6?
Parallel with the side, yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
I just wanted.
Well, let me pull up the screen share again. The verses that you see here are mostly traditional verses that have been associated with the Torah portion for centuries. Way back when people started realizing that the Old Testament prophets lined up with things in the Torah portion, as they divided the Torah up into a yearly reading program, they assigned it. And so everybody was doing basically the same scriptures, for hundreds and maybe even thousands of years. And what I did with the workbooks is whenever I found additional verses that I thought really were good parallel verses to go along, I added them also. So a lot of the ones you'll see here are the traditional. Well, I always will have the traditional verses here, but a lot of these will also have additional ones. So, I'm not going to go and re-edit and publish another book volume again, but, if I haven't looked into the verses you just mentioned, but if they are good parallel ones, and whoever's listening and watching this broadcast, rewind the video and take those down. And I encourage you to look them up, because what you're going to find, and the reason why I put the workbooks together the way I did, was to show that the themes of the Torah are literally woven through the entire Bible. From Joshua to Revelation, the Torah portions are woven throughout. And this just reinforces what I've been saying all along, is that the Torah is the Bible of the people in the Bible. It's the Bible that the people in the Bible were using as their Bible.
Very good.
Yeah.
So you were just looking for those as you were going through the Torah portions tonight, Rob? Or?
I found the ones that Skiva had mentioned. I found the ones on his site, and I was like, those are the ones I came up with. But then I found a couple extra, and I believe some of them may parallel with it.
Can you repeat those for me?
Yeah, this is just up in the air. But it's Jeremiah 1 through 2, and then it's Psalm 13. Then it's Matthew 1, and then Mark 12, 8-27, and then also 1 Corinthians 14, 18 through 25.
And where did you come up with those?
Well, there's
another website or something?
Right, I got the boy, he's crawling up the stairs. How long will you forget me is Psalm 13. About the council, and then there's talks about the face of the Lord. Just a bunch of things that happened with Moses. Just a lot of parallels that interconnect with the Exodus verses that are listed on the site.
Cool.
Exodus 1, verse 1 and 6 through 1. And I really love my favorite one right there is, because I found this on our virtualhousechurch.com Bible studies, Exodus week 13. 1 Corinthians 10, verse 11. These things happen to them to serve as an example, and they'll be written down to instruct them on who the ages have come. Oh, that wasn't it. It was this one.
Yeah.
For the kingdom of God is not just a lot of talk. It is living by God's power. And I actually had something that recently happened to me. I was basically flat, and I barely could get up. And and God told me to take my shoes off. And I was begging him to be holy, just begging him. God, I want to be holy. I'm tired of screwing up. Sometimes I hate my sin. I think I hate my sin more than he does. And I just want to be holy because I was just tired of slipping. He did give me that verse, that word that hit my heart. And I looked it up and Googled it. And I'm like, oh, yeah, the irony, right? But I was begging him to be holy. And he sent a prophet and told me to go forgive my dad. So as soon as I went to forgive my dad, I saw God, he picked the rebar, threw it down the wayside, and I realized it was connected with actually loving myself. So, and I realized I was projecting onto God, and I thought I had forgiven everybody, And then once I did that, I actually watched my first video for the first time. It was one of the first ones I posted on Facebook, and I watched it, and I went, man, I actually don't mind looking at myself, because I used to give myself a finger in the morning every day, tell myself off and all this stuff. But I actually enjoyed it. And I remember I'm networked with a lot of people you're networked with, and they were telling, and I was talking to them, they were talking about doing videos and stuff, and I really didn't want to do them. And I was out there, and God told me that, he said, just be yourself. And I wept for 2 hours. I was there, just weeping, and it was something so small, but I didn't realize that this stuff was relative to, I didn't learn my times table, so it was the right brain side, but I didn't actually realize it was to loving myself. And now I can look in the mirror, I can give my wife the radical love she needs. I can, things have just changed around, and it's like, it's crazy because I noticed that with Moses too. They got pulled out. He got taken away to go be holy, and then he's bringing the people out to go be holy. And I just noticed that's what's happening in my own life, and yeah, it's just cool. Anyways, yeah, love you guys. I just had to share that real quick.
Yeah, that's an awesome testimony there, Rob. Yeah, that verse. I'm going to put up the screen share again. Yeah, that's on the week 13 page, 1 Corinthians 4:20, and I put it in the New Living Translation here. That my preferred study Bible is a King James New Living parallel. So I've got King James on the left and New Living on the right. And when I just read the New Living rendering of that verse, it really jumped out at me. 1 Corinthians 4:20, for the kingdom of God is not just a lot of talk; it's living by God's power. I actually preached one of my first messages that I ever really preached was on this right here, is because everybody's talking about, the kingdom. Yet at the same time, they're also talking against the gifts of the Spirit, and in particular, the gift of physical healing. And this was in the ministry that I was a part of at the time. It seemed like everybody in the ministry was either sick or dying or knew somebody who was. It was always, we'd have these Tuesday morning prayer meetings, and it was always, oh, woe is this person, woe is that, and no, we got to pray for them. But it was like one person dying after another, one person being diagnosed after another, and Sheila and I, it was just driving us crazy because we were on a quest to try to understand this idea, and that healing was still for today, that the gifts of the Spirit are still in operation. And it was in that season that I came across that verse, and I was like, wow, the kingdom is not just a lot of talk. It's not just, hey, every weekend let's blah 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 for an hour. It's living by God's power, and part of His power is healing and deliverance. Being people healed, set free, and delivered. Casting out demons and all that good stuff that was all through the Gospels. And I actually, there was a time in this same season when I felt like the Lord really spoke to me, and God said, okay, I want you to go buy an orange highlighter and a yellow highlighter, and everywhere you see the word kingdom in the New Testament, highlight it in that part in the sentence in orange, and wherever you see the miraculous taking place, highlight it in yellow. And so I went through the New Testament and did that. And my Bible is tiger striped with orange and yellow because I kept seeing over and over and over again, wherever the kingdom was mentioned, people were being healed, set free, and delivered, and demons were being cast out. And He would even say it. Okay, Jesus would bestow upon His disciples the power to go do what He was doing. He says, go and announce the kingdom is at hand. Next sentence, heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, cast out demons, give as freely as you've received, over and over and over again, orange and yellow tiger stripe. So, and a big part of getting healed and set free and delivered, huge part of it is forgiveness. And so it excites me to hear you share your testimony and your story right there, finding a blind spot maybe, and forgiving your father and anybody else who's hurt you. And just how the freedom that came with that, and the healing that came with that, and the new outlook that you have as a result of that. That's exciting.
Yeah, I found that when it first came to Facebook, I didn't even know sorry, I didn't know what HRM was. The term HRM was. So I was attacked for it, and I Googled it. Honestly, it shut my mouth, and I was quiet for about 6 months Googling what HRM was. I had no idea what the term was. And then I finally, like 6 months later, I found out what it was. And I'm like, whoa, what's Hebrews Roots Movement? I had no idea. I just know my buddy cured himself with the Bible. And so that kind of shut me down. All these little instances had shut me down. And when I was attacked, after I was begging God to be holy, I was attacked and I ran. And man, I fell, and I fell hard. But when I came crawling back out of desperation, when I did, and I forgave him, man, so many things have changed. It's just nonstop. Now I'm coming back to, sat with my family. I got church in my living room. Like, you know, it's kind of hard to get the kids out, but hey, I can bring church right to us. You know, this is awesome. Anyways, I love you guys.
We love you, bro.
Thanks, brother.
All right.
Blessings.
Talk to you soon, bro. We've got Noel who just jumped on. Welcome to the Virtual House Church.
Shabbat shalom, guys.
Hey,
Shabbat shalom.
is it Noel or Noah?
Noel.
Noel. Okay, cool.
Hey, Rob, I had a question for you concerning the firmament. It's going to be like kind of guesswork here, but I'm just looking to see where your thoughts are on it.
Yeah.
And I wrote it down, so I'm just going to read it. So my question was, do you believe that God is seated on his throne in close proximity on the other side of the firmament, or do you estimate it to be further? And the reason I ask that is because in Revelation 6, you see all the inhabitants of the earth are trying to hide themselves from the face of the Lamb and from God when the heavens recede like a scroll. And I was curious to your take.
Yeah.
I know it's
Yeah, man. When as I got into the biblical Earth model and the biblical Earth cosmology, the way that this place is described, everything is very localized. And even in the spinning heliocentric ball Earth model, most evangelical Christians will acknowledge and believe that hell is literally right below our feet, that it's under us. And yet they think heaven's just somewhere in an ethereal realm, who knows where. And I'm going, well, what if both are very localized? I mean, the way it's described is hell is localized below us and heaven is localized above us, and it's close above us. I mean, it's not zillions of miles or, light years or other dimensions. It's on the other side of the firmament. And the firmament is described as a molten looking glass structure that's not very high above us. So, yeah, I very much believe now that, at least according to the Bible, his throne is very close. And this is one of those things that, people say this is a waste of time, it's a distraction, it's all that stuff. But the testimonies that I've been getting are exact opposite of what my detractors are saying. And not just atheists. I've talked about atheists and how this research has really done a 180 for a lot of those people. But also a lot of Christians have written to me, and one person in particular really stands out to me. This really heartfelt letter this woman wrote to me about how she had just had a miscarriage and was just going through a really difficult time and all that stuff, and then just realizing that his throne is literally right there. I mean, not very far away, and that he has his eye on us was an extreme comfort to her. And she wrote me this really nice letter about that. But I've been getting a lot of those types of letters because I think when people, whether they believe the earth is flat or not, if they can embrace the biblical cosmological worldview, it brings God way closer in a tangible way instead of an ethereal way. I think Christians who believed in the ever-expanding universe still believe God is close, but it's always in this kind of ethereal, metaphysical type quantum way, whereas the biblical cosmological worldview brings him closer physically, geographically, much closer. And yeah, when the sky dome opens up and the heavens recede like a scroll, and the people who are against God realize how close he really is, when he's like, whoa, the sky just opened, the football stadium just opened up and there's the star quarterback. I don't mean to, I don't mean any disrespect here, but I mean, when they see how close he really is, everybody's freaking out at that point. Let the rocks fall on us. I mean, woe is me, I'm undone kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Okay, and I also had a question regarding Ezekiel 28, and it was just something I was thinking about kicking around the other day when I was reading about, when she was betrayed by Judas. It says that the devil went into him. And so when I was reading Ezekiel 28, it starts off talking about the prince of Tyre and how he believes he's a god, and then it moves on to the king of Tyre, which I thought to be weird because it speaks about him being in the Garden of Eden and as a cherubim. And from what I've read or in studied, it seems to be that people associate that to be Satan, which makes sense to me. But I was curious, I was curious about the part in it, Ezekiel 28, where he talks about the sanctuaries. It says that he was perfect and he walked amongst stones of God in the garden, but it said he was corrupted when sin was found in him, and his sanctuary. It said he had sanctuaries, and I was curious about that, like sanctuaries and what kind of sense.
I don't know. I haven't given that any thought.
Okay, I was just curious to hear about that, because it seems also like that if that is Satan, he also is coming into the Prince of Tyre, because it seems weird to have a King of Tyre and a Prince of Tyre, but one of them's dying physically there, and though he's a prince, he would appear to be in context the actual ruler and king of Tyre at the time, but it refers to him as a prince, almost so you can get a kind of concept of the principalities in order in heavenly and earthly. I thought that was interesting. And then I just had one last thing I wanted to run by you real quick. I know everyone coming to Torah, we usually get into it with trying to share with somebody about the Torah still for today, and we should keep it. And everyone usually runs to Matthew 5 to prove their point about the law he didn't come to do away with the law. And it usually ends in a stalemate, because only Yahweh can open up somebody's eyes to it, is what I'm learning. But when I was studying, I ran across something I thought was interesting, a different viewpoint on it, if you will, a take. And I was studying the fear of the Lord. I started going over every verse I could find, and from what I gathered, it was an actual, yes, reverence, fear him, but then it also says that it's the beginning of wisdom, and it ends with saying that it's also keeping his commandments. And I have some verses here that say that, but just to save time, I thought this was interesting. So in context of it being keeping the law, when you get to Isaiah 11 and it's talking about the 7 spirits of God that have come upon Yeshua, it lists them, and it ends with the fear of the Lord. And it says, his delight is in the fear of the Lord. So his delight is in keeping the commandments. And then I paralleled that with Psalms 40 verse 8, and it's also talking about Yeshua. And it says, I delight to do thy will, oh my God, yea, thy law is within my heart. And so he's clarifying that it's in his heart. And the interesting thing about it that brought it all together for me is it says the law is spiritual in Romans 7:14. And here we see that that's the spirit that came on Yeshua. He says he delights in it. Well, when you get to Revelation and it talks about John seeing the lamb that looks like it appeared to be slain, and it had the 7 eyes, and the 7 eyes are the 7 spirits of God. Well, the light bulb moment went off. He's not missing an eye. He has 7 eyes. So if the fear of the Lord is the Torah, keeping the commandments, well, there you have it. After his death, burial, and resurrection, it's still there. And then when you go over to Acts 9, it says that all the churches in Judea and Galilee were walking in the fear of the Lord.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. Okay. Wow. Yeah.
So I thought that was a different angle, a different approach to kind of, share and see what.
Yeah, that's a really great insight, and it goes along with a study I did a while back on the word wise and wisdom. I mean, because I was looking into the whole wise virgins and foolish virgins, and I was like, well, what does it mean to be wise, and what does it mean to be foolish? And the beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord, right? And over and over and over again, I kept seeing the word wise or wisdom being associated with obeying God, which that's kind of a no-brainer if you think about it. I mean, hello, it's wise to obey the creator of the universe. I mean, it's so basic. It's absurd almost, and the reverse of that would be it's foolish to disobey the creator of the universe, but adding the fear of the Lord being the wise part of commanding or obeying the commandments, that's a great addition to that whole idea, I think.
All right. Thanks. That's all I have this time right now. I have some more questions about the firmament later, but I have to form them a little better for you.
We'll have more opportunities as we move forward, I'm sure. So, hey,
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, man. Thanks.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
John, I noticed in the chat room somebody was asking about Polaris. Polaris, could the throne be at Polaris? I believe so. And actually, I had, even before I came to any of this understanding that I have now, have always believed that that Polaris was the porthole of heaven. I've always believed that. So, the idea that it's the center of the dome, and that it's sort of Yahuwah's peephole, in a very localized, close throne room, just drives that point all the more home for me.
It makes sense. It goes back to,
And the angels are all going around him.
yeah, it goes around him, and then of course you had the temple in the wilderness where the fire was coming straight down through the middle of the tabernacle. I mean, just straight down. It's just,
yeah. And that's Andrew Hoy's model. If people want to learn more, go to project314.org and look at Andy Hoy's model of the tabernacle in the wilderness. Man, I think it's spot on. I mean, that would be the earthly representation of the heavenly reality of Yahuwah's footstool, with the center of the dome tent where the fire is coming straight down, being a miniature model of Polaris, the opening to heaven as seen from earth.
I want to give a quick shout out. I'm not going to name any names. I'm not going to name where I was at, but I was, Patricia and I and the kids were able to fellowship with you and some of the folks that you fellowship with on Shabbat. And, I just want to say the discussions there were deep and rich and edifying.
Thank you for bringing that up.
It was, it was refreshing.
Yeah.
And our fellowship, we get into the same discussions, but being in a new place with new people with new ideas, I'm not going to name names, but from the preteens to the teens, hammering this stuff out was just incredible.
Yeah. I mean, our group is just amazing, and your own children also. Any of the families that we have encountered that have children that are have either been raised up in Torah or are now coming up in Torah, they have a level of wisdom well beyond their years. And it's been a joy with some of the families that we meet with. I mean, even their younger ones. I mean, you're talking, 10-year-old or even below, who will sometimes take the reading. They'll read whatever the chapter, of the Torah portion or whatnot. These kids are sharp, man. They're really deep. But you brought out something in last week's Torah portion. I'm glad you just brought this up because I completely forgot. I wanted you to address it this week. And we're probably going to go late tonight, at least later than 10 o'clock because we still got to do Judges some more. But I want you to share the insight that you shared with us regarding John the Baptist last week.
So, I was doing a little research and I ran across Matthew 3, 1 through 3. And it says, in those days, John the Baptist came preaching in the wilderness of Judea, saying, repent, for the kingdom of heaven has come near. This is he who was spoken of through the prophet Isaiah, voice of one calling in the wilderness, prepare the way for Yahweh, or prepare the way for the Lord, make straight. I started thinking about John the Baptist and who is this guy, right?
Yeah, who's this crazy guy out in the woods eating bugs? And why are people going to this guy to get baptized? What's he think he's doing anyway? What's the deal with John the Baptist?
So I come across Luke 1:5, and it talks about his parents, his dad being the high priest that year, and his mom being from the line of Aaron. And I'm going, was he the true high priest? We see Caiaphas and Ananias there, acting Roman appointed Levite priest. And I was thinking, does Yahweh see them as legitimate? Because I've always heard the story where Caiaphas rips his clothes in the temple and the priesthood switches to Yeshua right then and there. And I'm going, is that really when it happened? If Yahweh's not seeing these chaps like legitimate high priest, when did it happen? And I went back and I started thinking about it, and I thought when Yeshua was baptized by John the Baptist is when the priesthood went from John to Yeshua, that John started to decrease and Yeshua started to increase. And his ministry just boomed from there on out. He was healing, he was saving, he was ministering to, he's raising the dead. He's making trees wither away. I mean, just everything you can possibly imagine. So I was looking at the priesthood, and John was a descendant of Aaron from both his mom and his dad. And these are just some of the notes I wrote down. The Gospel of Luke makes that a special point in Luke 1:5. And John didn't use wine. This offer conjecture that this was because John was a Nazarite. However, the qualifications for being a Nazarite, not cutting the hair, not being defiled by dead person, are never mentioned in the passages concerning John. The abstinence from wine, on the other hand, was also a command of the high priest. And the Lord spake unto Aaron, saying, Do not drink wine nor strong drink, thou nor thy sons with thee, when ye go into the tabernacle of the congregations, lest ye die. It shall be a statute for you throughout your generations. In Leviticus 10:8-9, I went, wow, this is John. And I'm thinking that he was legitimately a high priest. And you see him and Herod bantering back and forth. Herod knew who John was. Not only was he a prophet and he was scared of him, but he was supposed to be the high priest in the temple. And it was like Rome just banished him. Though Yahweh used him in the wilderness to usher in Yeshua, but only a high priest could do that. To transfer the priesthood from the Levitical line to Yeshua as our high priest. And so I started thinking that out, and I brought that up, and I was like, the more I look into it, the more I see. The prophecy of Malachi has 3 references into a messenger. The first instance is referring to the state of the priesthood. For priests' lips should keep knowledge, and they should seek the Torah at his mouth, for he is a messenger of Yahweh's of hosts. That's Malachi 2:7. That's John. The second reference is to John and the messenger of the covenant of Yeshua. Behold, I will send my messenger, and he shall prepare a way before me, and Yahweh whom he seek, ye shall suddenly come to his temple, and even the messenger of the covenant, Malachi 3:1. That the word in all 3 instances refers to the priest instead of one, John being the odd man out. And I'm thinking, man, Yahweh did a whammy on the priesthood that was appointed by Rome and completely blinded everybody from it. And it was like when I realized this, I'm going, was he the high priest? Was he the legitimate high priest?
Yeah, we in the course of the dialogue, something came up with was it Josephus or somebody recorded how that scripture that what was it in Luke, where Jesus says, from the righteous blood of Abel to Zechariah, who you killed between the altar and whatever.
Right.
I forgot the exact scripture and the reference. But historically, I had always associated that Zechariah with the prophet that wrote the book of Zechariah. But as we were talking about this at Shabbat, we're like, well, that doesn't make sense, because he's drawing the furthest parallel to the most recent. Mm-hmm. And if it's Zechariah the prophet, that wouldn't have been that recent. That would have been, quite some time prior. So if he's saying, this first murder, Abel, and this more recent one in the collective memory of the people that he was talking to, it would then make sense that he was talking about Zechariah, the father of John. And he's rebuking these guys for murdering the prior high priest. And I think it was somebody brought out that Josephus said that Caiaphas was appointed in 18 AD or something like that, that he was the Roman appointed high priest, which makes him illegitimate to begin with. And so if that's true, then John the Baptist being the son of Zechariah being the high priest prior, that he would have been probably the legitimate heir to the throne, if you will, of being the next high priest. So it makes sense then that you have this crazy, amazing power struggle taking place, that without this context, without this understanding, John's just this weird wild card out there, this kind of weird guy eating bugs out in the wilderness, in wearing strange clothes, baptizing people. And you're like, well, who gave this guy the right to baptize in the first place? Why does anybody care? Why is he popular enough that people would flock to him? Why does he even have a following at all? Like, none of that makes any sense at all, unless you realize he was probably being groomed to be the next high priest. His dad is murdered, and then the Romans bring in a usurper, and but he's the legitimate heir, if you will.
And he was legitimate to rebuke Herod.
Yeah,
he had the authority to rebuke him.
And that's what's so crazy. If your theory is true, and I'm coming more and more on board with it. I've never heard it before. I've never heard anybody else propose it. Maybe others have. I've just never heard of it. And when you brought it out, all the light bulbs started clicking in my head. I'm going, wow. Because then all the tension that he has, and then of course him getting eventually beheaded and the whole deal, and why they hate the guy so much. I mean, if he's just some crazy wild man, why would he be enough of a threat to anybody in the position of royalty? Nobody would care.
Luke 11:51. It talks about from the blood of Abel to the blood of Zechariah, who perished between the altar and the sanctuary. And in the Strong's, Zechariah is mentioned as John the Baptist's dad.
Wow.
But see that, and I've got to do a little bit more digging because you can't really trust. You've got to get more sources to back that. But as of right now, I'm still working on it because it's amazing. The relationship between the high priest, the legitimate high priest would have come from a bloodline, and his parents were bloodline Levitical priests, his mother and his dad. And his dad was the last to go into the Holy of Holies on Day of Atonement to make atonement for Israel. And I'm going, that was his dad. And the only way that the priesthood could switch was from John to Yeshua. And that whole trial that Yeshua went through was illegitimate. It was
a mock trial, the whole deal.
Yeah. And the only one that could do it would be John.
That was powerful, man. I think you make a very, very good case for it.
Well, still working on it, and I still get excited every time I start talking about it. But he also had the authority to rebuke the temple leaders, because he did that as well. And only a high priest could do that, to judge.
Yeah, and it's interesting because he prophesies that one greater than him is coming, and then granted he's cousins with Yeshua, but he recognized when Yeshua showed up that, hey, there's the lamb right there. He must increase, I must decrease. And basically his followers, migrate over to Yeshua.
And a true Levitical high priest would know what the lamb is because they're supposed to inspect the lamb.
Yeah, wow. And he baptized.
He is supposed to.
And Yeshua, again, Yeshua said there's none greater, than John, right? Of all the prophets,
right?
He's like, and it's like, man, is this just nepotism? Is it because he's my cousin, he's my bro? No. I mean, there's a lot more going on here that we have missed by not understanding what's really going on there. And man, that was great. I mean, we had an awesome. All of our home study groups are like that. I hope the virtual house church is like that for many of you out there. I hope you guys watching and listening have hear things you've never heard before, or get these epiphanies and you walk away, wow, that's so cool. This is so much richer. But certainly our home studies are, man, every week is like and what was crazy was when you guys were there, more than half of the group had called in sick. And coincidentally, we had chemtrail skies all, I posted on Facebook, look at all the chemtrails, I was so mad about it. And then a couple days later, like over half of our group calls in sick. They couldn't meet it. So you couldn't meet a lot of the people, but of the people that were there, you saw how awesome our home group is.
It was a true joy to be amongst you guys. There's a few questions I want to get to before we get into.
All right, let's take 2 or 3 and then we'll migrate over.
Well, Tiffany asked this right at the beginning of the show, and I wanted to get this asked. And since the Torah portion is names, she says, can a name have an effect on a person's life spiritually and personal wise?
Biblically speaking, the names always had meaning. Esau comes out red and hairy, so they name him Red and Hairy. That's what his name means. Jacob comes out grabbing his heels, so they name him Heel Grabber. That's what Jacob means. The names have meaning. Abram, I think, was blessed prince or something like that, and Abraham is like father of many nations. Names have meaning, and people in the Bible lived out the meaning of their names. You know, Joshua, his name it was Hoshea or something like that, which means salvation, I think. And Moses changed his name to Yehoshua, which means Yah is salvation. So, and it's interesting that Moses gave Joshua his name. Our Savior has the same name as, I don't know why they felt the need to transliterate into Jesus, because they had already transliterated the exact same word into Joshua. So they already had a transliterated English name, and they may have done it to try to make a differentiation between the biblical character of Joshua and our Savior. That may have been the reasoning for it. But yes, names have meanings, to go back to the original question. And what I have only recently come to realize is that I am actually living my name. Robert, the name Robert means bright fame. Now, in terms of my current situation, that could be famous or infamous, depending on who you're talking to. But I have achieved some measure of recognition and popularity worldwide. So there is a bright fame, if you will, that I am walking in, just by virtue of my internet presence. My last name, Skiba, means to plow a field for planting seeds. It's a farming term. And I found this out after I created a TV series called Seed. And this is the graphic that I created. This is my mouse pad. If you go to seedtheseries.com, this is on the front page of interestingly enough, a huge tree on a flat plain. And if you read the book of Daniel, it talks about the king had a dream that there was a huge tree that the whole world could see. Not possible on a ball. But interesting that was the graphic that I came up with in 2009. And I started developing this TV series. And my whole premise behind the TV series and why I called it Seed is because I'm just planting seeds that you, the savvy audience, can watch and hopefully water and see come to harvest. That was my whole purpose and mission statement behind it. It's why I called it Seed. And about 2 or 3 years after I had already done all that, I found through one of those name sites or whatever, and somebody had done a family tree or when our genealogy.com or whatever, and traced our family. And we come to find out that that's what the word Skiba means. So for me, and I didn't do it intentionally. I didn't do it because I knew that's what my name meant. I just so happened to have already been in a position where I am living the meaning of my name. So, it might be an interesting study for those of you out there listening to figure out what your name, your first and last name, means, and see if you're either walking in it or on your way to doing so.
Excellent explanation. Rhonda asks, she said, John, what about when the veil was ripped by Yahweh in the temple at the crucifixion of Yeshua? Was that when the high priest changed to Yeshua? Yahweh rent his temple garment because of the death of Yeshua, and now the order of Melchizedek began with Yeshua. Rhonda, I'm still studying this out, and that's a good point. I don't know if I'd have to look at why the temple, again, relook at that, look at John, and actually look at the Levitical priesthood and a lot of the instructions that Yahweh gave to them and what made them priests and why they were who they were and why they did what they did and what it would mean if that ripped. I don't know if it was part of the earthquake that happened then or the weather, because it probably got crazy up there at his death. Absolutely nuts. So I'll have to look at that, and if you message me, I'll get back with you on that one.
I could be wrong about this, but my understanding is I believe that the Holy of Holies would have been empty in the second temple.
Yeah.
Because the Ark of the Covenant wasn't there. They didn't have it. So, and if that's the case, then basically, the take I have on it is when Yahuwah rent the veil, you already had now with your understanding, I'm just thinking out loud here, this is on the cuff, but we already have an illegitimate priesthood officiating in a temple that doesn't even have the Ark of the Covenant. And so the high priest rent his garment, which nullifies his priesthood. And when Yeshua died, it's almost like God's just peeling back the fraud of what was going on. It's like, hey, peeling, there's the Wizard of Oz, right? Peeling back the curtain, it's all a big puppet show, right? Hey guys, check it out. You've let these guys rule over you. And it's an empty Holy of Holies. The ark's not even there.
Al Sheba, and everybody in the chat room knows her as Diane. She also started this, not only the scripture, but she asked Rob a couple of weeks ago, because Yeshua and John are cousins. So therefore he's related to John the Baptist and related to his mom and dad through his mom. And I'm going, okay, so they're related. What other special thing? Because Yeshua held John in high regard. Mm-hmm. I mean, high regard. Mm-hmm. And he didn't, for a Levitical priest, and we saw the priest of that day, and the Roman appointed, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the scribes, the lawyers, and we saw how he dealt with them. But when it came to John, it was, he had high regard for him. And so what was special about him? So I dug, and that's what I came up with. But I have to look in that view. You're right. Peeling back to Holy of Holies and nothing's there. Mm-hmm. It's a fraud.
Yep.
Interesting. All right. I'm going to try to get one or two more questions in.
Let's do one more, just because I'm going to get kind of late here. I don't know how long the judge's portion is.
5 chapters
long.
No.
Well, it's 5 chapters long, but some of them could be 10 minutes just per chapter,
Yeah. Did all of this is from Jean-Luc. Did all of Egypt speak Hebrew? Was that the dominant language? And or did the Jews, Hebrews, speak multiple languages during Exodus? And they were Israel. They were all Israel. It wasn't just Jews. It was all of them. So
yeah, I don't believe all of Egypt would have spoken Hebrew. The Hebrews would have retained their own language, I'm sure. And having been living in the land for 215 years, I'm sure that they eventually picked up Egyptian. So they would have been bilingual, in my opinion.
And you did a really good study on the Tower of Babel, and the dispersion of all the nations and the different languages that goes out. And it was all under, I believe, speaking Yahweh's language. Hebrew was speaking Hebrew, and then all of a sudden he divides it up. Of course, if you do your research on Egypt, the king or the Pharaoh regarded you high if you could speak as many languages as you could, and you go up each step. So that's really good teaching that you've done on that too.
Thank you. All right. Let's I'll screen share here again and jump over to the book of Judges. Here we go.
Judges 21. Now the men of Israel had sworn at Mizpah,
"No one of us shall give his daughter in marriage to Benjamin."
And the people came to Bethel, and sat there till evening before God. And they lifted up their voices and wept bitterly. And they said,
"O Lord, the God of Israel, why has this happened in Israel, that today there should be one tribe lacking in Israel?"
And the next day the people rose early and built there an altar, and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. And the people of Israel said,
"Which of all the tribes of Israel did not come up in the assembly to the Lord?"
For they had taken a great oath concerning him who did not come up to the Lord to Mizpah, saying,
"He shall surely be put to death."
And the people of Israel had compassion for Benjamin their brother, and said,
"One tribe is cut off from Israel this day. What shall we do for wives for those who are left? Since we have sworn by the Lord that we will not give them any of our daughters for wives."
And they said,
"What one is there of the tribes of Israel that did not come up to the Lord to Mizpah?"
And behold, no one had come to the camp from Jabesh Gilead to the assembly. For when the people were mustered, behold, not one of the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead was there. So the congregation sent 12,000 of their bravest men there, and commanded them,
"Go and strike the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead with the edge of the sword, also the women and the little ones. This is what you shall do. Every male and every woman that has lain with a male you shall devote to destruction.
And they found among the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead 400 young virgins who had not known a man by lying with him. And they brought them to the camp at Shiloh, which is in the land of Canaan. Then the whole congregation sent word to the people of Benjamin who were at the rock of Rimmon, and proclaimed peace to them. And Benjamin returned at that time. And they gave them the women whom they had saved alive of the women of Jabesh Gilead. But they were not enough for them. And the people had compassion on Benjamin, because the Lord had made a breach in the tribes of Israel. Then the elders of the congregation said,
What shall we do for wives for those who are left, since the women are destroyed out of Benjamin?
And they said,
There must be an inheritance for the survivors of Benjamin, that a tribe not be blotted out from Israel. Yet we cannot give them wives from our daughters.
For the people of Israel had sworn,
Cursed be he who gives a wife to Benjamin.
So they said,
Behold, there is the yearly feast of the Lord at Shiloh, which is north of Bethel, on the east of the highway that goes up from Bethel to Shechem and south of Labonah.
And they commanded the people of Benjamin, saying,
Go and lie in ambush in the vineyards, and watch. If the daughters of Shiloh come out to dance in the dances, then come out of the vineyards and snatch each man his wife from the daughters of Shiloh, and go to the land of Benjamin. And when their fathers or their brothers come to complain to us, we will say to them, Grant them graciously to us, because we did not take for each man of them his wife in battle. Neither did you give them to them, else you would now be guilty.
And the people of Benjamin did so, and took their wives, according to their number, from the dancers whom they carried off. Then they went and returned to their inheritance, and rebuilt the towns and lived in them. And the people of Israel departed from there at that time, every man to his tribe and family, and they went out from there, every man to his inheritance. In those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes.
Ruth 1.
In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land, and a man of Bethlehem in Judah went to sojourn in the country of Moab, he and his wife and his 2 sons. The name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife Naomi, and the names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem in Judah. They went into the country of Moab and remained there. But Elimelech, the husband of Naomi, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. These took Moabite wives. The name of the one was Orpah, and the name of the other Ruth. They lived there about 10 years, and both Mahlon and Chilion died, so that the woman was left without her 2 sons and her husband. Then she arose with her daughters-in-law to return from the country of Moab, for she had heard in the fields of Moab that the Lord had visited his people and given them food. So she set out from the place where she was with her 2 daughters-in-law, and they went on the way to return to the land of Judah. But Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law,
Go, return each of you to her mother's house. May the Lord deal kindly with you as you have dealt with the dead and with me. The Lord grant that you may find rest, each of you, in the house of her husband.
Then she kissed them, and they lifted up their voices and wept, and they said to her,
No, we will return with you to your people.
But Naomi said,
Turn back, my daughters. Why will you go with me? Have I yet sons in my womb that they may become your husbands? Turn back, my daughters, go your way, for I am too old to have a husband. If I should say I have hope, even if I should have a husband this night and should bear sons, would you therefore wait till they were grown? Would you therefore refrain from marrying? No, my daughters, for it is exceedingly bitter to me for your sake that the hand of the Lord has gone out against me.
Then they lifted up their voices and wept again. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her. And she said,
See, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. Return after your sister-in-law.
But Ruth said,
Do not urge me to leave you, or to return from following you. For where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there will I be buried. May the Lord do so to me, and more also, if anything but death parts me from you.
And when Naomi saw that she was determined to go with her, she said no more. So the two of them went on until they came to Bethlehem. And when they came to Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred because of them. And the women said,
Is this Naomi?
She said to them,
Do not call me Naomi. Call me Mara, for the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me. I went away full, and the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi when the Lord has testified against me, and the Almighty has brought calamity upon me?
So Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, with her, who returned from the country of Moab. And they came to Bethlehem at the beginning of barley harvest.
Ruth 2.
Now Naomi had a relative of her husband's, a worthy man of the clan of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi,
Let me go to the field and glean among the ears of grain after him in whose sight I shall find favor.
And she said to her,
Go, my daughter.
So she set out and went and gleaned in the field after the reapers. And she happened to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the clan of Elimelech. And behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem, and he said to the reapers,
The Lord be with you.
And they answered,
The Lord bless you.
Then Boaz said to his young man who was in charge of the reapers,
Whose young woman is this?
And the servant who was in charge of the reapers answered,
She is the young Moabite woman who came back with Naomi from the country of Moab. She said, Please let me glean and gather among the sheaves after the reapers. So she came, and she has continued from early morning until now, except for a short rest.
Then Boaz said to Ruth,
Now listen, my daughter. Do not go to glean in another field or leave this one, but keep close to my young women. Let your eyes be on the field that they are reaping, and go after them. Have I not charged the young men not to touch you? And when you are thirsty, go to the vessels and drink what the young men have drawn.
Then she fell on her face, bowing to the ground, and said to him,
Why have I found favor in your eyes, that you should take notice of me, since I am a foreigner?
But Boaz answered her,
All that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband has been fully told to me, and how you left your father and mother and your native land, and came to a people that you did not know before. The Lord repay you for what you have done, and a full reward be given you by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge.
Then she said,
I have found favor in your eyes, my lord, for you have comforted me, and spoken kindly to your servant, though I am not one of your servants.
And at mealtime Boaz said to her,
Come here and eat some bread, and dip your morsel in the wine.
So she sat beside the reapers, and he passed to her roasted grain. And she ate until she was satisfied, and she had some left over. When she rose to glean, Boaz instructed his young men, saying,
Let her glean, even among the sheaves, and do not reproach her. And also pull out some from the bundles for her, and leave it for her to glean, and do not rebuke her.
So she gleaned in the field until evening. Then she beat out what she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. And she took it up and went into the city. Her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned. She also brought out and gave her what food she had left over after being satisfied. And her mother-in-law said to her,
Where did you glean today, and where have you worked? Blessed be the man who took notice of you.
So she told her mother-in-law with whom she had worked and said,
"The man's name with whom I worked today is Boaz."
And Naomi said to her daughter-in-law,
"May he be blessed by the Lord, whose kindness has not forsaken the living or the dead."
Naomi also said to her,
"The man is a close relative of ours, one of our redeemers."
And Ruth the Moabite said,
"Besides, he said to me, 'You shall keep close by my young men until they have finished all my harvest.'"
And Naomi said to Ruth, her daughter-in-law,
"It is good, my daughter, that you go out with his young women, lest in another field you be assaulted."
So she kept close to the young women of Boaz, gleaning until the end of the barley and wheat harvests. And she lived with her mother-in-law.
Ruth 3.
Then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her,
"My daughter, should I not seek rest for you, that it may be well with you? Is not Boaz our relative, with whose young women you were? See, he is winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor. Wash, therefore, and anoint yourself, and put on your cloak and go down to the threshing floor, but do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. But when he lies down, observe the place where he lies, then go and uncover his feet and lie down, and he will tell you what to do."
And she replied,
"All that you say, I will do."
So she went down to the threshing floor and did just as her mother-in-law had commanded her. And when Boaz had eaten and drunk, and his heart was merry, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of grain. Then she came softly and uncovered his feet and lay down. At midnight, the man was startled and turned over, and behold, a woman lay at his feet. He said,
"Who are you?"
And she answered,
"I am Ruth, your servant. Spread your wings over your servant, for you are a redeemer."
And he said,
May you be blessed by the Lord, my daughter. You have made this last kindness greater than the first, in that you have not gone after young men, whether poor or rich. And now, my daughter, do not fear. I will do for you all that you ask, for all my fellow townsmen know that you are a worthy woman. And now it is true that I am a redeemer, yet there is a redeemer nearer than I. Remain tonight, and in the morning, if he will redeem you, good, let him do it. But if he is not willing to redeem you, then, as the Lord lives, I will redeem you. Lie down until the morning."
So she lay at his feet until the morning, but arose before one could recognize another. And he said,
"Let it not be known that the woman came to the threshing floor."
And he said,
"Bring the garment you are wearing and hold it out."
So she held it, and he measured out 6 measures of barley and put it on her. Then she went into the city. And when she came to her mother-in-law, she said,
"How did you fare, my daughter?"
Then she told her all that the man had done for her, saying,
"These 6 measures of barley he gave to me, for he said to me, 'You must not go back empty-handed to your mother-in-law.'"
She replied,
"Wait, my daughter, until you learn how the matter turns out, for the man will not rest, but will settle the matter today."
Ruth 4.
Now Boaz had gone up to the gate and sat down there. And behold, the Redeemer, of whom Boaz had spoken, came by. So Boaz said,
"Turn aside, friend. Sit down here."
And he turned aside and sat down. And he took 10 men of the elders of the city and said,
"Sit down here."
So they sat down. Then he said to the Redeemer,
Naomi, who has come back from the country of Moab, is selling the parcel of land that belonged to a relative, Elimelech. So I thought I would tell you of it and say, buy it in the presence of those sitting here and in the presence of the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, redeem it. But if you will not, tell me, that I may know. For there is no one besides you to redeem it, and I come after you.
And he said,
I will redeem it.
Then Boaz said,
The day you buy the field from the hand of Naomi, you also acquire Ruth, the Moabite, the widow of the dead, in order to perpetuate the name of the dead in his inheritance.
Then the Redeemer said,
I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I impair my own inheritance. Take my right of redemption yourself, for I cannot redeem it.
Now this was the custom in former times in Israel concerning redeeming and exchanging. To confirm a transaction, the one drew off his sandal and gave it to the other, and this was the manner of attesting in Israel. So when the Redeemer said to Boaz,
Buy it for yourself,
he drew off his sandal. Then Boaz said to the elders and all the people,
You are witnesses this day that I have bought from the hand of Naomi all that belonged to Elimelech, and all that belonged to Chilion and to Mahlon. Also Ruth the Moabite, the widow of Mahlon, I have bought to be my wife, to perpetuate the name of the dead in his inheritance, that the name of the dead may not be cut off from among his brothers and from the gate of his native place. You are witnesses this day.
Then all the people who were at the gate and the elders said,
We are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your house like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the house of Israel. May you act worthily in Ephrathah and be renowned in Bethlehem. And may your house be like the house of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah, because of the offspring that the Lord will give you by this young woman.
So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. And he went in to her, and the Lord gave her conception, and she bore a son. Then the women said to Naomi,
Blessed be the Lord, who has not left you this day without a redeemer, and may his name be renowned in Israel. He shall be to you a restorer of life, and a nourisher of your old age. For your daughter-in-law who loves you, who is more to you than 7 sons, has given birth to him.
Then Naomi took the child and laid him on her lap and became his nurse. And the women of the neighborhood gave him a name, saying,
A son has been born to Naomi.
They named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. Now these are the generations of Perez. Perez fathered Hezron. Hezron fathered Ram. Ram fathered Amminadab. Amminadab fathered Nahshon. Nahshon fathered Salmon. Salmon fathered Boaz. Boaz fathered Obed. Obed fathered Jesse. And Jesse fathered David.
All right. Wow, we got quite the story there, actually, for ending in Judges and all of Ruth right there. That's pretty cool, the way that worked out.
A Moabite in the line of Yeshua.
Yeah, that one's always tripped me up a bit.
Well, talk about grafting in.
That's
He's the master.
That's a major grafting in right there. Yep.
People were talking about names in the chat room as Ruth was starting, and they were looking up Ruth's name and Naomi's name. Pleasantness is Naomi, pleasantness, delight. And then Ruth is companion, friend. And then Boaz is swiftness. I thought that was interesting.
This is the book people need to check out. You can also look it up online. There's a website that has everything that's in this book for free on the website, but it's a dictionary of scripture proper names by J.B. Jackson. And all it is all the names in the Bible and the meanings of their names. As you can tell, it's a really short book, but a great resource, probably the best $5 I ever spent. But again, it's also online for free. So if you just did a Google for dictionary of scripture proper names, J.B. Jackson, you should be able to find the online resource. So that'll help you definitely with the biblical names. I don't know how much it'll help you with modern names, but good resource there. Some good insights people are sharing. That's cool, man.
Nathan asked, Rob, have you considered that sounds might have meaning?
Sounds?
Sounds.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, Yahweh spoke, and here we go. Here we are.
Well, we already know that certain frequencies of sound have abilities to do things. I mean, some even say that certain sound waves can levitate objects. So, yeah, I mean, sound sound waves, frequency. It's all important. And others, in fact, I think this came up at our home fellowship last week. Somebody was talking about the Hebrew letters themselves had a frequency. I don't remember the rest of the context of that conversation, but the short answer would be yes.
Patricia just texted me like really quick. She said the word for covering in Ruth 3 verse 9 is the same word in Malachi 4:2 when Yeshua is prophesied to come bearing healing in his wings. That's interesting.
Cool.
I don't know. We are barreling down on 11:15 here. I know it's getting late over there. You have any final thoughts on Ruth or on what's been discussed tonight?
No, I'm excited that we're doing this. That we're just kind of trying to plug our way through the rest of the Bible here, and I'm going to go back and look at Ruth 1 again for a second. Okay, yeah, Ruth 1:1. In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land, and a man of Bethlehem in Judah went to sojourn in the country of Moab. He and his wife and 2 sons. So we have this weird situation in the last chapter of Judges where they make this vow where you can't marry a Benjamite and all this kind of stuff, and so many of the things that take place are way outside of our 21st century Western culture. So, it doesn't surprise us that some of this stuff kind of makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up the way things go. And, you kind of like, what's up with that? We got to take our 21st century American mindset and put it aside when we're reading some of these things. But I do find it interesting that was the last chapter in Judges and happened to be the first portion that because we're doing 5 chapters at a time, that we happen to read, and how it segues perfectly into Ruth 1. Like that, and so and then we got through the entire book of Ruth in one sitting here because only 4 chapters. So and that brings us all the way up. So we've here we're doing the Exodus. We're starting Exodus, and so we're in Moses time frame and stuff like that. After the Torah, we have the conquest of Joshua. Then we have a snapshot, cliff note of the time period of the Judges, and then we get to Ruth, and that brings us right up to David. And things sort of start to ramp up into high gear from that point forward. So we start next week with 1 Samuel. So that's exciting.
1 Samuel is going to be exciting. Exactly. And you're right. Yeshua said, you got to come to him as a little child. And that has a lot of meaning, bright-eyed, open mind, and ready to learn, unlearn what you've learned and relearn his ways.
Yeah. That theme of coming like a child has come up a few times this week for us here in the Skiba household. And in one context was, I don't know if you saw the video that I posted, this guy had made this model of a circular world under a dome, and he had a plate that was suspended over the circle, that the bottom of the plate was the northern stars in what we call the northern hemisphere. The stars that we can see in the so-called northern hemisphere was on the bottom of the plate. And on the top of the plate were the southern stars, and he had it on a motor spinning, and he put a GoPro in there, and he said, here's the firmament, right? Well, the Bible describes the firmament as a cast metal mirror in the book of Job. So it's reflective. And so it was just the simplest little thing, like a child would, I don't want to demean the person who did this, because I think it was brilliant, but it was like childlike reasoning. He said, and he makes this little model, and he puts a GoPro in there, and sure enough, depending on where you move the GoPro, toward the center or toward the outside, if you're toward the center, the stars are rotating, let's say, in a counterclockwise motion, and as you move toward the outside beyond the equator, and you start picking up the reflection of the top of the rotating disk, which is the southern stars, they are rotating in the opposite direction. So he actually built a working functional model of the biblical cosmology just by making the stars a rotating plate over the earth as another disk with a top and a bottom, the top being reflected on the dome, and the bottom you just look up and see it. And I was like, wow. and my Facebook comment was, what if it really is this simple? and somebody said, well, it says come like childlike faith, you know. I don't know, man. Look, that was something new to me. I haven't spent any time thinking of it other than watching that video and just going, wow. But the more and more I try to just come at the text with childlike faith and just let it say to me what it would say to a child, you know, without all the bias that I bring to it as a 47-year-old adult, you know, the more it just starts making sense to me.
It takes us back to the beginning of tonight's Torah portion discussion about the walls of water. And I'm thinking right now, as you're talking, the kids that are going down, going down through the middle of it, and their hands in the water as they're walking by, because
you know they would have done that. I would have done it. You know,
the adults are freaking out because this is supernatural beyond anything.
Yeah,
comprehension, and kids just putting their hands in it as they're walking down through there.
You know, I mean, if I was a kid, I would have totally been doing, and I would have been looking like, wow. I mean, because I talk about an aquarium. You know, I don't know if they ever had aquariums prior to that, but they would be, wow, look at that big fish. You know, come on, Johnny, come on, Robbie.
Yeah, the adults are sitting there. We gotta go. But
look at a shark. Wow, look at.
Yeah. And you could see Yeshua just smiling.
Yeah.
Look what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, like a child.
Yeah, you know, and along those lines, because we know that God is described as a consuming fire and stuff like that. And, you know, it says, the angel of the Lord comes down and we see that this pillar of fire comes down and is leading them. And I brought this up early on in my investigations on this, thinking about this as we're going through Exodus last year. It's just like, I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, $6 Million Man was popular on TV. It was, we watched it every week. And I used to walk around with my fingers doing the $6 Million Man, and make him jump, So I have my little finger guy, right? And so I was reminded of that, childhood thing I used to do when I was reading about this, angel Lord coming down, this pillar of fire and stuff. And I'm going, what if, okay, we've got this sky dome, we've got this portal over top, and Yahuwah just reached down with his mighty right hand and went, and the Israelites just followed behind him,
That's great.
I mean, I'm just being a kid right here thinking about the mighty right hand. He kept saying, I've rescued you with my mighty right hand. I'm going, what if that's what he did?
I was, with my two, and man, they're so much wiser than I was at their age. And being at your fellowship and seeing the young men there, they were preteens all the way up to teens. And I'm just amazed at the work that Yahweh does through families who share all of the scriptures. Mm-hmm. And don't cherry pick. They start from the beginning and read to the end, and they do their Torah portions weekly. And that's the discussion around the dinner table. And it's amazing to be around them. Mm-hmm. And as a child, they're coming to it. And you're right. Having that joy and that wisdom and having fun doing what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And they didn't hate being there. None of them. Mm-hmm. They were into it.
Yeah. I mean, how rare is that young people would want to sit in a room with adults reading a book for 6 hours,
Well, Patricia was at one of the families that we fellowship earlier, and they were just visiting, and the kids were sitting around and talking about Hanukkah and talking about the Torah portion, talking about Shabbat's coming up, and I don't know why you got a little kid, not even 7 years old. Why don't people do Sabbath? Mm-hmm. And that's the question, children are at. Why don't people do it?
Yep.
Man, childlike faith.
Childlike faith.
You keep that in the Skiba home, brother.
Well, I'm still 18 in here, so I'm stuck with a kid mentality most of the time anyway, and sometimes younger.
Well,
oh yeah, I can't reach it from here, but yeah, right up there. toward the end of my bookshelf there is my baby book. My mom, I found it at my parents' house, and my mom kept some pretty good notes of my early development as a kid. And when it was under speech development, she wrote, "He constantly questions everything." Right, it was one of the things. And then when one of the subjects was, most unusual thing child said or something, and my mom wrote, "He always says, I just don't believe it." Okay, so that's when I was like 1. Not much has changed in 47 years.
He's just
46 years
taller. He's got taller and grew hair.
Yeah, it's getting gray. Yeah. Keep it young.
One of the last things, a mutual friend of ours, Troy, came on earlier and said, "Hey, would you ever consider doing a snapshot of your library and posting it so people can look at, the different things you've researched and studies and maybe
all my books?" Yeah, I can do that. Yeah. And probably can't. The resolution is probably not good enough for you to read the titles of everything back there, but I can tell you it's a lot, and there's more downstairs.
The next time we come, you might be missing a monkey. That's all. I'll stick it up there.
No comment. I started thinking about a rebuttal to that, but I thought, you know what? I'm not going to give anybody that soundbite. So
that's a good note to end the show.
On that note, better quit while we're behind.
I'll let you end it, man.
All right. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for joining us this evening on the Virtual House Church. And Shabbat Shalom. As Zach Bauer would say, go read your Bible.
Bless you and keep you. Yahuwah, make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yahuwah, lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Yahuwah, make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yahuwah, lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace.
Yahuwah te bendiga y te guarde. Yahuwah haga resplandecer su rostro en ti